E ngā iwi o Aotearoa. E aku manuhiri tuārangi haere mai nā koutou I te tī, I te tā, nau mai haere mai ki ngā kōti o Aotearoa. O ti rā, ki o koutou kōti.
Kia ora, and welcome to the courts of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Our courts are part of the community and our lives. Over the years, they've responded to changes in our society to better reflect who we are, and they'll keep changing to adapt to the needs of New Zealand. But where do they fit into our system of laws and governance? How do they function together? And what are the principles they're built on? Let's find out. The New Zealand system of government has three equal branches: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive is led by the Prime Minister and includes government ministers, who oversee government departments and agencies that administer the laws. The legislature is Parliament in Wellington, and it's where the laws are made. And the judiciary, that's the judges. They make the court decisions and uphold the laws. Our system of government is based on what is called the separation of powers between these three branches of government. This separation provides checks and balances on how the government exercises its power. Neither the government nor Parliament can control or influence how a judge decides a case. In some countries, there's no separation of power, and a leader or group running the country can get the judges to do what they want. If they don't like a group because of their religion or beliefs, or if there are people who oppose their rule, they can get the judges to imprison those people. In New Zealand, this can't happen because our judges are independent to ensure they're impartial and not influenced in deciding the case that's before them in court. The independence of our judges protects our human rights.
The independence of judges is very important in the big picture constitutional sense, because we must be fearless in monitoring whether the executive, the government of the day, has gone beyond the powers given to it by Parliament or has abused those powers. If it has, the court will order that it put it right.
Every judge in New Zealand takes an oath of judicial independence. This means that they will promise that they will not be influenced by anyone and will decide cases impartially.
Our courts resolve disputes and make sure that people are held accountable for their behaviour if they break the law. There are four main levels in our court system. The first is Te Koti Ārohe, the district court. Most large towns and cities have a district court. It is the busiest court. The family court and youth court are part of the district court. Most cases are heard in the district court.
District court judges hear a wide range of cases. We deal on a daily basis with a large cross-section of people throughout New Zealand. Cases heard by the district court are criminal, including jury trials, family court, youth justice and civil cases. Some of the cases I hear as a district court judge can be dealt with when a person makes their first appearance, but others are more complex and require more time and attention to resolve, so there may be several court appearances.
Next is Te Koti Matua o Aotearoa, the High Court. The High Court is the highest court in which cases can start. The most serious criminal cases and civil cases are heard in the High Court.
Most of the criminal cases in the High Court are decided by juries. In those cases, the judge is like a referee, making sure that the process is fair to both sides. It always starts with the presumption that the defendant is innocent. The Crown has to prove that the defendant committed whatever crime they have charged him or her with. A defendant never has to prove anything. That's the bedrock of our criminal law. Of course, mistakes can occur. That is what the Court of Appeal is there for. But our system that requires the Crown to prove beyond reasonable doubt each element of any charge certainly should reduce significantly the risk of innocent persons being convicted.
If one of the parties is not satisfied at the result of a court case, then that case can be appealed to a higher court, and that's where our top two courts play their part: Te Koti Pira o Aotearoa, the Court of Appeal, and Te Koti Mananui, the Supreme Court. They're the appeal courts. When a case is appealed to these courts, they don't rehear all the evidence. They only hear the legal arguments about the alleged mistake.
The Court of Appeal has a key role in developing legal principle, correcting errors and ensuring the consistency in the application of the law. It hears civil and criminal appeals from cases in the High Court and criminal appeals from jury trials in the District Court.
So, in the Court of Appeal, the case is heard by a bench of judges, either 3 or 5. They consider if the judgment of a lower court should be changed. The Supreme Court is based here. It hears cases that have been reviewed by the Court of Appeal, but that the Supreme Court judges decide should be reviewed by New Zealand's highest court. The judges that work in these two appeal courts, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, are the top judges in New Zealand.
The Supreme Court is New Zealand's final court of appeal. The court can agree to hear an appeal only where it involves a matter of general public importance, a matter of general commercial significance, a significant issue relating to the Treaty of Waitangi, or where a substantial miscarriage of justice may have occurred.
In our courts, there are 2 types of cases. Criminal cases where the state brings a charge against an individual, and civil cases where a claim is brought to address a civil wrong, such as a breach of contract or to recover a debt. Our courts are based on fairness, openness and transparency. In criminal cases, there is the presumption of innocence and the right to a fair trial.
How we treat a person charged with a crime is a reflection of the values we hold as a society. Only if a fair process has been followed can the power of the state to punish a person be justified. That is why the starting point is the presumption of innocence. A person charged with a crime is considered innocent until proved guilty.
Everyone who comes before a court in New Zealand has the right to a fair trial. The judge must make sure that the accused person is treated fairly.
It is only if these fair trial rights are recognised and protected that we can be sure a conviction is safe and that the state is justified in holding that person to account for what they are said to have done.
To do that, the judge must make decisions about when the case will be heard, legal representation, assessment of the person's ability to stand trial, language or sign language interpretation, publication of details of the case, and the judge must make sure that the case is conducted according to the laws about court procedures, including what evidence is allowed to be given in court. The views of the victims are also considered by the judge. Our courts are open and their work is transparent. Judges and court staff work hard to ensure courts are accessible. Access to a courtroom or information about a case will only be limited if it's necessary to protect a victim or to ensure a fair trial for the accused person. So, generally, anyone can enter a courtroom to view a case. The media are encouraged to report on the work of the courts, and courts publish information on court cases and judgments of public interest. So our independent judiciary and our courts are one of the 3 branches of government protected by the separation of powers. Our courts function together through appeals to higher courts, which work to correct errors and shape the law. They're built on principles like the presumption of innocence, the right to a fair trial, and openness and transparency.
The courts of Aotearoa, New Zealand hear cases that touch virtually all aspects of life. These are your courts. You are welcome to find out more about how they serve New Zealand by visiting us on the internet or by coming along and seeing the courts in action.
Engari mo tēnei wā.
Hei
Hei konara.